If you know me, you know I love everything and anything journaling related. So, of course, I was going to have my own store to offer notebooks, journals, and planners. So, the notebooks is just a reminder to get people motivated into journaling again. And then my journal was created in a season where I was looking for outside validation. So, it just helped me, this setup helped me bring the attention back to myself. And it's just the three things that are important to me, not what not the to-do list, but what really matters. Sometimes I put I need to breathe. Something that you're grateful for, something that you're proud of, something that you dream of, and something that you pray for. Something simple but effective. And then I say my planner is like having a conversation with yourself all month, where you have your vision board, you have the things that you're tracking, and then at the end of the month, what made you happy, what do you need to improve, and notes to yourself. So you can find that and more at butterflydreams.co. And then you have, for first time customers, I have a 15% off using coupon code first purchase. So thank you so much for your support. Hello and welcome to Life with Francy Podcast, where you will find conversations about mental health, life, business, anything fun. It just depends on the episode and on the guest. I love to bring a more positive energy. Let's learn from one another and build a community supporting each other. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Now, let's get the show started. Today's episode is thanks to Podmatch, an amazing community for podcast hosts and podcast guests to do amazing collaborations like this one. They have tools, resources, and all kinds of things for anybody in the podcasting world. You can find the links and more in the description of the episode. And on today's episode, we will have the pleasure to get to know Lisa Sugarman, who is an author, a national syndicated columnist, a three times survivor of suicide loss, a mental health advocate, and a crisis counselor with the Trevor Project. Today, you're gonna find conversations about grief, mental health awareness, and more. I can't wait to start this conversation with her. Let's welcome Lisa to the show. Tell us, what is life with you?
Hi, it's so good to be here. Your intro is amazing. And I'm watching your backdrop with your palm trees and your ocean, and I'm just wishing that I was in that backdrop right now. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Lisa Sugarman. I'm here just north of Boston, where I live with my husband. And I'm all the things that you listed in the intro. I'm a mental health advocate. I'm a crisis counselor. I'm a storyteller with the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I write books. I create content around mental health and wellness, and specifically suicide awareness and prevention. And I guess, like, who am I? I guess I'm somebody who feels very, very compelled to raise the collective consciousness on suicide and to help change the narrative on mental illness and make it okay to not be okay. That's who I am.
I love that. Mission is the same over here, trying. I just my past guest, he was talking about his mental health journey, and it's real. So we need more people to speak about it and, to make us feel understood, that we're not alone, because when we're going through it, we sure feel like it. And that's why I have the podcast, to get to know people like you, to share their story and things like that. So tell us a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, of course. And I just need to shout out to you and say thank you for creating a safe space like this to have these conversations, because they're so important. And that's that we change the mindset around all of these things that have been so stigmatized. So thank you for that. So my story is a little bit, I think, unique in the sense that not that I'm a survivor of suicide loss, because unfortunately there are so many millions of people out there who are also survivors of suicide loss, but I'm a survivor of three suicide losses. One of them was my father. And what makes my story a little bit unique is that I've actually lost my dad twice in my life. So I'm 55 years old now, and when I was 10, I lost my father very, very suddenly to what I was told was a heart attack. And that was the narrative. That was the story that I was given in my childhood and all throughout my youth and young adulthood. And then, so my father was 45 when he passed away. Ironically, when I turned 45 that summer, I found out very much by accident that my father had actually taken his own life. So I went right in that moment of that discovery, I went right back to day one of that loss and was regrieving it all over again, this time as a grown woman, as a mother of two. At the time, our girls were teenagers. Um, I was married, I was a wife, I was fully immersed in my life, and all of a sudden I had to regrieve my father's death. So I really just kind of blew up, I guess is the best way to say it. It blew me up inside, and it took me years to really be able to even kind of get my mind around it enough to be able to start talking about it. And I've always written what I know. I've written what I live. Like I was a parenting author for over a decade, writing about that work-life balance and raising kids and that family unit. And so I couldn't stop writing about what I know. I just had to change what I was writing about. And I felt very compelled to write about my experience because I've pretty much been accompanied by grief my whole life. I lost a family member the year before my dad died. That was also a suicide. I have lost grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, another close friend to suicide 3 years ago. So it's this lifelong relationship that I've had with grief and having to figure out how to make it a part of my life. And I felt like there were lessons that I had learned that had benefited me. And so I wanted to pay that forward and help in whatever way I could to change the conversation and kind of bust apart that stigma. And that's why I've been doing what I'm doing. So I started slowly talking about it, then writing about it, then speaking about it. I'm writing a new book about it. I've created a big mental health resources hub on my own website to help in another way, creating resources for people. So that's who I am. That's what I do, and that's why.
Oh, wow. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot to
well,
unpack there.
yeah, yeah. Um, because when you add, I'm thinking about my friend right now, so I'm a little bit off because you're going through it, and I'm picturing her kids right now. So I apologize because like
No,
I am like my heart breaks for them,
don't
and
apologize.
it's like, what is the right thing to do with a kid? Because they have part of the story, but they don't have the whole story. But you don't want to, you want them to be kids too.
How old are the kids?
Right now they're 9 and 10, I believe.
Yeah,
And then when their dad took that decision, they were 4and 5.
yeah, and they
So
don't
the
know.
little boy is more of like chill energy. He's just
Hmm.
going through life. What
Hmm.
happens, happens. But
Yeah,
the little girl, that anger, because she's daddy's girl.
yeah. I was daddy's
And
girl.
so it just, so I apologize because this is my heart,
No,
and just like what, because I'm helping her through it.
yeah, yeah.
I have been holding her hand since she has been in that situation. The mom, we work together,
Mm,
and so we talk a lot about how to handle the kids and things like that. And now you tell me, that you lost your father twice because
yeah.
of knowing the story and just knowing that that's coming for my friends' kids, you know.
Yeah, it's a heartbreak. First of all, I'm so sorry for that loss for you and for your friend and for the kids. And second of all, if your friend wants to reach out to me, please put her in touch with me to even just to talk because we share that similar experience. And I was that kid. So if I can help in any way, please make that connection. Second thing is, I mean, look, it just sucks. I mean, the whole thing sucks whether the truth is known or not. The fact is their father's gone. And they are young. They're really young. I mean, I don't think that I would have told my kids. I purposely waited like 3 years until I talked to my children when they were, high school age. And I felt like they had the capacity to really understand, sit down and have that kind of conversation and understand what depression was and suicide was and mental illness was. So, I mean, I'm glad that I waited a little bit to tell my own children. And honestly, like, I can only speak for myself and my experience, but a lot of people ask me when they find out my story, do I hold any resentment toward my mother for keeping that secret from me? And I say,
Mhm.
not in the least bit. Not in the least bit. Have I ever? Will I ever? Could I ever? Because when I found out the truth, I was a mom. I was a mom. I had two young kids, and I instantly got it why she kept that from me. Because, like you said, she wanted me to be a kid. Like, it was bad enough that I lost my dad. See, there are the good secrets and there are the not so good secrets. And this secret was designed to shield me from a pain that was beyond any kind of comprehensible pain that a child at 10 years old could navigate. So I get that. And I'm so grateful to my mother for sparing me from that. It just so happened that there seemed like there was kind of never the right time after that to tell me,
Yeah.
like you go into high school, you're going to college, you're getting married, like you're in your life now. So um my mom wasn't going to tell me, mainly because she really just didn't think that it was necessary. But she's so grateful that I know now. And when I did ask her if it was true, she immediately said yes. She's like, I would never lie to you. So I guess for your friend, like, she's got to kind of go with her gut. There'll kind of never be a right time, but we
Mhm.
need to give our kids more credit for what they can handle, and we need to treat them with that respect, like it was their dad. So at
Yeah.
some point, they probably do deserve to have the truth when mom thinks that they're ready.
Yeah. And I give her mad props because whoo, she has gone through a hell and back and
Yeah.
like had to take care of them, and the way that her daughter too had mental health diagnosis on
Mm,
top of her trauma, and the way that she's handling things, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had that growing up, because I
yeah.
didn't get my mental health diagnosis till like 2 years ago. So I'm
Hmm.
brand new of giving myself compassion and grace and, things like that for the things that I have gone through.
Yeah.
So I see that that's kind of your why on the being a crisis counselor for
Yeah.
the Trevor Project.
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, can you tell us more?
Of course. Yeah, sure. So the Trevor Project, for anyone who doesn't know, is the country's largest crisis support hotline for LGBTQ youth who are at risk, ages 13 to 24. So that's our primary demographic, even though we certainly do get calls from people of all ages, within and outside of the LGBTQ community. But our primary demographic is that age group, 13 to 24-year-old youth and young adults. And I've been on the Lifelines now for, it's closing in on 2 years, and I'm on their hotline. So I'm on an actual telephone talking to someone who's in crisis on the other end. We also do have a texting platform as well. And it works the same way. It's just somebody can text versus talking. Some people find that more comfortable. And we just provide support. We provide resources if we need to, if we're able to. We hold a lot of space for people with all sorts of issues. Any reason why somebody would call a lifeline, that's the reason why somebody might call the Trevor Project. Maybe they're struggling with coming out, or maybe they are in an abusive relationship, or maybe they're suicidal, or they're homicidal, or they're living on the streets, or their financial situation is unstable. It's like anything, or maybe they're grieving someone that they've lost and they just need someone to talk to. So that's what we do.
Um, why is it okay not to be okay?
Because we're human beings. We're human beings, and we have such a deep and complicated emotional infrastructure inside all of us. There is no one setting to being a human being. We've got our really up, happy days, we've got our down days, we've got every day in between. And, the world around us is super, super unpredictable, especially these days. It is a hard world to be in these days, and for so many reasons. And we have to give ourselves permission and each other permission to not be okay, because there's a lot of shit going on in the world right now that is impacting each one of us outside of the scope of whatever each of us is dealing with as a human being, because we're all dealing with something. We've all got something, either we've got something with our job or with our relationship or with our family dynamic or with our friendships, or just internally we've got some kind of fear or some kind of challenge that we're trying to overcome in one way or another. And you can't be okay all the time, because that's not reality. And it doesn't give you the ability to process the hard stuff that we go through and kind of come out of that hard stuff on the other side. So it's so important to sit in that stuff that's so hard every once in a while when we need to, for as long as we need to, and to own it, because that's how you process it and that's how you find a way through it and you build that resilience. So we kind of have to learn how to not be okay. It's a part of life.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that and that reminder because sometimes we can be so hard on ourselves
Yeah.
as we going through it, or like we should be better, or we should be able to handle this or that. But just acknowledging it, sitting in it, and just having that roadmap, like I call it like a roadmap, to
Yeah.
where like, okay, I'm because for me it's like anxiety and things like that, so sometimes it just comes. It's
Mhm.
not, and like grieving, sometimes it just comes, and it's like, now how do I do life with it? So it's having your survival kit on,
Mhm.
like, where to go back so you can get back on being yourself again. I don't know if I'm being
You are.
understood, but
No,
like,
no, you
yeah.
are, no. You articulate that just right. I mean, it's true. We have to give ourselves the space, and more importantly, I think the permission to, number one, admit to ourselves that we're not okay, and number two, to admit, like, to the people around us that we're not okay, because they can't do anything if they don't know we're not okay. Like, I think just instantly I think of my dad, and nobody knew my father was struggling. Nobody knew my father had mental illness. He was really good at hiding it. And a lot of people, most people, are really good at hiding it in some way. And so if you don't see a problem, you don't know there's a problem. So how do you help the problem? That's why we have to be a little bit more vulnerable to ourselves and with each other.
We definitely have a different mindset as we see this,
Yeah.
the struggles that they had to go through that decision, and for the families too, because you have that, I could have done better, I could have done this, I could have done that. But
Yeah.
man, the mind is a powerful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And knowledge is power. So it's not, once again, since I did the mental health evaluation, that I
Mhm.
can separate myself from my brain,
Yeah.
and finding the resources to help out. Just like if you were to go to the gym,
Mhm.
because you want to get fit, then you have to have your fitness plan for your brain to handle it.
That's such a beautiful way of putting it, because it's so true. It's like we prioritize. I've written a lot about this and spoken a lot about this, that we prioritize so many things that I think are just silly when you put them next to mental health. We prioritize things like, servicing our car and cleaning our house and doing our yard, and, all the things like the chiropractor and the dentist and all of these other, women doing their nails and all the things that, okay, on some level, like they're nice things to do. There, maybe even some of them are important things to do. But why are we not prioritizing our mental health and well-being on the same level as those things? It seems
Yeah.
kind of ridiculous to me. So I love the idea of having, like, that mental plan for, exercising your mind, or taking care of your mind.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that we forgot to mention?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we've talked a little bit about giving ourselves grace, and I think that just goes hand in hand with giving ourselves permission to feel the hard stuff, and it goes hand in hand with being able to express when we're not okay. So I would say, just along with kind of letting yourself sit in it and giving yourself grace, just know that wherever you are in this moment, if it's a really, really particularly hard moment, it will not always feel like this. It will not always look like this. Like, it feels so intense. And this goes back to what you said about the mind being such a strong, a strong and powerful thing, that it can kind of, it can make us do and think very different things than we should be doing or thinking. So we need to we need to be able to go beyond that. We need to be able to say, okay, it's bad right now, but it's not always going to be bad. So that's what I would say. It's just know that it will change. It will change, and most likely change for the better.
I try to remind that to people too, because while you're in it, it feels like so dark and it's so real. And it is. At the moment, it
Oh yeah.
is.
Yeah, for
You are
sure.
in the danger zone, you are in the whatever zone that is very negative at the moment. And I have somebody at work like going through custody battle. So it's a different scenario. But
Mhm.
at that time, one of those days in this journey in the past year, he had a really, really bad day. And I just looked at him and had a conversation with him. The next day, he was like, "Thank you for checking in on me." Because it was a really bad day, and I was trying to do everything that I could to get myself out of it, but I
Yeah.
just couldn't do it. But you having that conversation with me, it just snapped out of it. And that's it. You have that community around you
Yeah.
to
That's
support you.
that's such an important point, and I'm so glad that you shared that story, because that would be one of the other things that I would suggest to the people listening to this, is that if we're not reaching out, like I said before, if we're not reaching out, people don't know that we're struggling, and people can't help us. So take a little bit of a leap of faith and find the people that you trust the most and talk to those people, because a lot of the time, and this might have been the case with the friend that you helped, that when someone acknowledges how hard things are for you, that's sometimes that's all somebody needs, is just to have the space held, to be validated, and to be heard. Because when you're just sitting there acknowledging that someone is going through something hard, and you listen to that and hold that space, that says to them, they see it, it's real, it does hurt, and it is something that validates how they feel. And that can be such a cathartic feeling. It can be such a helpful feeling, because now you don't feel like you're alone. Now you don't feel like you're going crazy in your own head. And the other thing that I would add to that is, it's not our responsibility to solve somebody else's problems. Like, it was not your responsibility to solve that person's problem, but we all damn well owe each other enough courtesy to be there to support each other. Support doesn't mean figuring it out and solving. Supporting just means be there, listen, ask the question, offer to help. And when you do ask someone if they're okay and they say no, a lot of people are afraid to ask the question because they're afraid of the answer. And if you ask someone and they say, I'm not okay, all you ever have to do is recommend to them, call 988, call the Trevor Project, call a lifeline, or text the crisis text line, because there are people there who do have resources and who can offer help in different ways. So that's something that you can always share with someone who's in a bad headspace, along with listening to them.
I love that. Where can my listeners find you?
The best place in the world to find me is at lisasugarman.com. It's where all my social handles are. I mean, I'm on Instagram at Lisa_Sugarman, and Facebook at the Lisa Sugarman, and YouTube the Lisa Sugarman. But just go to my website at lisasugarman.com, and you can find everything I do, all the books that I've written, all the content, articles and columns that I've written. I also am the host of the Suicide Survivor series on YouTube. all gets funneled right through to my website as well. And I think I mentioned too that I also have a pretty big resource hub that I've created that has about 16 different categories of communities, like the BIPOC community, the Asian community, the veteran community, the LGBTQ community, the AAPI community, all of these communities with help that's very specific to those groups. Mental health support, resources, tools, guides, crisis lifeline numbers, all of that can be found there as well.
Awesome. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story with us.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
I forgot. So, what are you grateful for?
Oh God. Um, that's a big one. Honestly, I'm grateful for my community, and that starts with my family and extends out to my friends and the people who are kind of in my orbit. I'm so grateful to them for just being there to lean into when I'm not having a good day, or when I'm feeling like I'm challenged. I'm grateful because I feel like I have the most beautiful little community in the world. And I feel like that's such a big part of why I can do what I do, because I feel incredibly supported.
I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Life with Francy Podcast. You can find it in all major platforms as well as my YouTube channel. You know the drill. Like and subscribe. Help this girl out. You will find all the links for my guests or myself in the description of the episode. Hope you have a blessed day. Bye bye.